Stampers, and welcome to Laura's Stamp Pad. Today I'm going to do another tutorial which shows you the one sheet wonder technique. With this technique, you stamp one sheet of cardstock with whatever stamp set you wish, and then you cut it up into different pieces to make all of these different cards. So I will show you all of them individually. This one here, and of course you can see the one sheet wonder piece is right there. And then there's this one, and then this one, that one. I love these colors. These were done in Melon Mambo, Elegant Eggplant, Crushed Curry, and then I added in some wild wasabi and some crumb cake. And then I also did this little box. So I got 8 cards and this little box with one sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. So I'm going to show you today how to do this. We're going to start off with our 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You can see here, you can't see it probably as well as you will here in a bit because I'm going to start stamping all over it, so you will then be able to see where it is. Right now it's just white, so it's a little bit harder to see. I will be using the Flower Shop stamp set, and that is this one here. And I'm actually going to be using this flower, and this flower. You can, of course, use whichever flowers you prefer. I just chose these because they're some of my favorites, and I find that they kind of follow a little bit of the same pattern. So I have my Crushed Curry, Elegant Eggplant, and Melon Mambo ink pads. And what we're going to do is I'm going to start with Elegant Eggplant, and we're just going to kind of stamp diagonal across the piece of paper. You can stamp randomly. My randomly ends up being diagonals. So then just kind of fill in a little bit however you wish. There's really no right or wrong part to this because one, it's up to you, and two, you're going to cut it up into pieces. So even if you think that this area looks too much, you're going to cut it up into pieces to where it's going to be a little bit on one and a little bit on another, so it's no big deal at all. Now we're going to switch to the next flower. And this flower, oh, actually I picked a different one. I'm going to go ahead and do this flower here because I like how it's a little bit fuller and solid. And that's why I'm going to do that one in yellow because yellow's a light color anyway. So we're just going to randomly stamp this here and there just to fill in a little bit. We want to still leave a few areas because we still need one more color, which I have a hard time with that. I'm ready to just fill in all over and not worry about that next color, but always got to leave room for that third color. And you can always come back and do, a few more yellows if you find the need to, or, a few more pinks because you thought you had more. I always want more pinks, so now we'll just fill in with our Melon Mambo. And you can make your flowers really tight together, or you can leave a lot of blank space. The only thing about using the blank space is some of your smaller pieces that you cut out might actually not have any flowers on it if you leave a lot of blank space. So do keep that in mind and fill quite a bit of it with flowers or designs or something in between. I feel like it needs one there, but I don't know where, so I think I probably will just let that go. So now you can see the whole page is just filled with flowers. And now it's time to cut it up. So we will bring in our paper trimmer. And to start out with, we're going to cut it in half this way. Let's see. So we're going to actually cut it at 4 1/4. And so now we have 2 4 1/4 pieces. Now this one, we're actually going to cut again at 2 inches. And this gives us a 2-inch wide piece and a 2 1/4 inch wide piece. And now you'll cut these in half at 5 1/2. So then you will end up with 2 pieces that are 2 1/2 by 5 1/2. I'm sorry, 2 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then 2 pieces that are actually 2 inches by 5.5. So now those are done and you'll set those aside. Bring back in your 4¼ by 11. And with this one, we're just going to keep cutting all the way down here. So first we're going to cut at 4¼ by 4¼ Then we're going to cut at 4¼ by 1¼ And now I'm going to actually move over to this side. And then 4¼ by 1/2. 4¼ by 1¾ 4¼ by 1.5. And then your last piece is 1¾ So now you're all ready to go and you can start stamping and assembling your cards together. Okay, and now it's time to assemble your cards. Of course, you can assemble them however you wish. I'll show you how I did some of mine so that it can give you a bit of an idea for some guidelines on how you might want to assemble yours. To start out with, those large pieces, the 5.5 by 2¼ there's 2 of those, and the 5.5 by 2 inch. I used 3 of those for these 3 cards here. So this one, I have a crumb cake base. I then layered the piece, I actually brushed the edges with some sponge daubers. Of course, you know how I love those. Then I layered that onto a piece of crushed curry. The crushed curry piece measures 2¼ by 5.5, and that's what gives that little extra trim on that 2-inch piece. Then I stamped one of the flowers in Elegant Eggplant and punched it out with the coordinating flower punch. Of course, that's fabulous little punch that matches the stamp set so perfectly. I then just took a little piece of white scrap paper and added the little hello. Most of the greetings that I used for the stamps, for the cards today, was from the A Dozen Thoughts stamp set. This is one of my favorites because it has so many wonderful greetings there. So that's how I did that one. This one is very similar. I have an Elegant Eggplant base. This one I just have a little piece sticking out of Melon Mambo. I went ahead and put this one flush to the edge. So I just used a little bitty piece that's 5.5 long, and then, you know, you could do it little scrap piece that you have that's a 1/2 inch or anything wider, just because it's gonna go under there. Again, I did a crushed curry little banner with a little scrap piece there using the hello greeting from A Dozen Thoughts. And I stamped the flower in Melon Mambo this time, and I added a little bit of the dazzling details. I super love the way those just give a little bit of glitter without a lot of fuss of heat embossing and everything like that, and added the little flower. Then this one, I added it, it's flush to the bottom, it's a Whisper White card base, but I added little banner tags in Elegant Eggplant and Crumb Cake, and then did the little white banner with my greeting Happy Together. Again, I did the little flower here, and I don't know how well you can see that, but do you see how I added the dazzling details on those lines of that flower petal? Aren't those super fabulous? Love it. And I actually stamped in Wild Wasabi one of the flowers, and so you kind of have that like petal effect where it looks like the little leaves on the background. Another better idea, because this one I kind of had a hard time placing it just so perfectly to only have 2 petals sticking out. So another option that you can do is stamp a flower onto green, and then like the Wild Wasabi, and then punch it out and then cut out 2 of the petals. That would work so much better. So that's how you do those pieces. For the 4th piece that I actually used it on my box. And I just punched out little 1-inch squares and added those on all 4 sides. And then again, added a little flower to the top of the box there. You could always do that however you wish. You can do a strip that wraps all the way around. You could do a full square for the top and then do flowers around. However you wish to decorate your box. And now we'll go to all of the little pieces. So here we have all of these. Here you can see I used a card base of Melon Mambo, and I stamped the flowers all around in the background just to kind of fill in and give a little bit of a decorative look. I added a little bit of the organza white ribbon, and then the crushed curry nicely borders that piece of the One Sheet Wonder. This one, of course, uses the 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 square. I did brush the edges with my sponge daubers with my melon mambo. I added some of the white satin ribbon and just added a little piece of the crushed curry to the bottom here. That's 4 1/4 wide, and then you can make it, you know, just a little bitty piece because it just kind of pops out a little bit. So you don't need to fill in this whole piece underneath. You just need, you know, a little strip there. And then, of course, I added the greeting on the bottom. This one, I went ahead and made my banner tips on my One Sheet Wonder piece. The best way to do that is to cut up in the center and then cut from the corner to that center cut. That gives you nice even banner tips. I then laid that on a piece of crumb cake and then mimicked the same banner so that it would match there. I layered this onto Whisper White, which I brushed the edges with some Melon Mambo and stamped Wish Big. I stamped here and then stamped again and then stamped again, so I have that nice ombre effect look there. And then I layered that onto some Melon Mambo cardstock, and my card base is crumb cake, and added a little flower. Again, I stamped the flower and then punched it out with the crushed curry. This one uses all of those little pieces that you cut out. This is the 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and the 1 inch. And I just did little banner tips there. Of course, they were a lot longer, so I did have to cut here in order to have that staggered look there. I punched out the flower with the elegant eggplant. And again, I added some of those dazzling details to the center of that card. Added my greeting on the bottom, which is on some crumb cake. The crumb cake, I do have the brushed edges with some elegant eggplant. That's layered on Whisper White cardstock with a card base of wild wasabi. And then for the last card here, I have the card base of Melon Mambo, and then I layered a piece of crumb cake on the back of my One Sheet Wonder. Used a little banner of crushed curry and then stamped the flower in elegant eggplant onto elegant eggplant cardstock and punched that little flower out. Of course, all of my flowers are up on Stampin' Dimensionals just to give a little bit of dimension and texture to all of the cards and to add a little bit of oomph to them. And you know how I love some dimensionals, so there isn't a project without them. So look how quick and simple you're able to create 8 cards, and then I also have a little treat box. You could always just create 9 cards if you wish, out of one sheet with all the same color scheme. So it's super fun to be able to just use a certain amount of stamp pads. You know, you could pick red, blue, and green. You could pick just 2 colors. You could pick 5 colors. Just kind of play with a little bit. Be sure to check out my blog, laurasstamppad.com, for more on these samples. I will also put a link below for the other video that I did with the One Sheet Wonder technique. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Happy stamping! Bye-bye!